Section 2 is American power tips the balance, and we're looking at America mobilizing a large army and how America did that to help the Allies. So the first question is, how did the United States raise an army? The United States raised an army by implementing the Selective Service Act, and that Selective Service Act required men to register with the government in order for a random selection for military service. Note that some of the men were deferred in this because of their skill sets, such as the ship workers and the need to create the ships in order to supply the needs for the Navy. Mass production. How did the U.S. expand its Navy? Well, the U.S. expanded its Navy through mass production, through many shipyard workers being exempted from the draft, to boosting the public relations to emphasize the importance of shipyard work, and the new technique of prefabrication. And then we have the government also taking over commercial or private ships and converting them for transatlantic war use. America turns the tide with the convoy system. And the convoy system was when destroyers were used to escort merchant ships in groups to combat the U-boats. The U.S. Navy planted mines across the North Sea to keep the Atlantic free of U-boats. And the U-boats, again, are those German submarines. In the fighting in Europe, after 2.5 years of fighting, the Allied forces were demoralized and exhausted, and the Americans, when they came, they brought freshness and enthusiasm to the Allies. Fighting over there, we're looking at the American Expeditionary Force that was led by General Pershing, and he made up a variety of men from across the U.S. with a variety of talents. And you might have heard of the term doughboys. The doughboys were the American infantrymen. When we look at the new weapons that were being implemented in this war, we're looking at tanks and airplanes as the introduced the mechanized warfare. We also saw the implementation of poisonous gas, and airplanes engaged in those famous dogfights, and those planes were later converted into planes that could carry heavy bombs, and we'll see that effect more so in World War II. The war also introduces new hazards. The new hazards such as shell shock, where one is emotionally just collapses, the trench foot, the trench mouth, and dysentery, and just unsanitary conditions. Americans, troops, they go on the offensive, and when we look at this map, we're looking at all of the green as Allied forces, and then Germany is the predominant one you see as the central power. The American forces helped stop the German advancement and helped to turn the tide against the central powers. We have the American hero, which was Alvin York. Alvin York was a war hero who was what they considered a conscientious objector. He opposed the war on moral grounds. However, he later saw value in the war, and he was a significant part of the AEF. If you remember, the AEF is the American Expeditionary Force, led by Pershing. At one point in time, he had one revolver, a rifle, and he was able to kill 25 Germans with 6 other men, and they captured 132 prisoners. So he emerged as a U.S. celebrity. What caused the collapse of Germany? The American involvement in the war. Fresh troops. Germany was exhausted. We see that Austria-Hungary, they surrendered November 3rd of 1918. And the German soldiers and workers uprise. You see a socialism government established in Germany. And then the the Germans signed an armistice or a truce on November 11th, 1918. And then we have a final toll. When you look at the numbers, the fewest casualties lost were the U.S. Now, that might be because of the late involvement, the U.S.'s late involvement, but Russia lost the most, then Germany, and France and its empire. But again, I repeat, the U.S. lost the fewest casualties. When we look at the financial and economic costs, you can see the billions of dollars that Germany spent, Great Britain as well, and U.S. spent $32 billion. When you look at that for a short period of time that they were involved, it really outweighs some of the other countries that were in it from the beginning. And that ends section 3.